Hey guys, it's Katie and I'm here today to do the classics books tag, which I didn't know existed until Kate Hickey, who tagged me in it, did it, and I had to do it. Because if you guys don't know by now, I love the classics. Just look at my video from last week if you don't know that already. But I love the classics, and I had to do this tag. So here we go. Number 1, an overhyped classic you didn't like. There are a couple I think that could fall into this category. I mean, as I've said before, there are classics and then there are classics. So if we're talking classics, then I might say Moby Dick. A lot of people I know loved Moby Dick. I'm not a fan. It just, I just didn't like the story. I didn't like the characters. Just the whole thing made me sad, and I wanted nothing to do with it once I was finished. So yeah, Moby Dick, not my favorite classic. 2, favorite time period to read about. This is the $1,000,000 question for me. My favorite time period. For classics, I don't know. I tend to go anywhere from ancient antiquity to medieval to Renaissance. That's my main area. Always has been. There's a reason I majored in ancient studies and medieval studies. But I also love reading about Victorian period as well because of the romantic aspect and the interesting political scene that is the Victorian era. So I guess if you were to say those 4 categories are arguably my favorite. 3, favorite fairy tale. There are a lot of fairy tales I really like. I've read a lot of fairy tales. One of my absolute favorites is The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. It always will be, because I am a sea child at heart. But I also, a lot of people probably have never heard of, it's called The Flying Ship. It's a Russian folk tale, and that's really fun and whimsical and just really neat to read. I picked it up a few weeks ago and I reread it. It's really short, but it's really fun. I have this whole book called the Old-Fashioned Storybook, and it has all different types of fairy tales and folklores inside, and they're all from all over the world. It's not just German or English or other unique ones, like they have a Scandinavian one in there, and then I said they have a few Russian ones. So yeah, that book really has a special place in my heart. 4, what is that classic that you are most embarrassed you haven't read yet? Well, I could just say a lot of them, most of them, but I am embarrassed to say I have not read Paradise Lost yet. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm embarrassed. I haven't read it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And it's not like I'm cringing inside because I haven't. But I have not read Paradise Lost. I also haven't read Frankenstein. Those are both kind of up there in my kind of need to read as soon as possible book categories. So if we're gonna say like I should have read these by now, but I haven't yet, I'm not feeling embarrassed about them, but those are definitely up there. 5, top 5 classics you'd like to read soon. I really want to read Persuasion by Jane Austen. Haven't read that yet. I would also, as I said, I would really like to read Frankenstein, and I would really like to read Paradise Lost. I haven't read Emma yet. I should probably go read Emma. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I have to read that. I haven't read that yet. And I also haven't read Les Mis. I really want to read that. Picture of Dorian Gray. The list is kind of long of the classics that I want to read because I love them so much, so I just tend to gravitate towards them. Arguably my second favorite genre of books to read after fantasy, because fantasy is and will always be my number one. But yeah, those are probably some of the list of the books I really want to read. I've also read some like fairly obscure classics, so I mean it's kind of all over the board. Master Margarita, definitely up there. I took Russian for a year, and my professor would talk about it constantly, and he made me want to read this book very, very badly. So definitely up there. Oh, that's it. Those, I think I named at least 7 or 8 books instead of 5. Sorry, needed to be more because there's plenty more. Anyway, 6, favorite modern book or series based on a classic. Favorite modern book or series based on a classic. I don't really know. I don't think I actually have if I've ever read any modern adaptations of series or classics. Obviously, The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. She did a kind of fairly modernish take on Dracula, and that is definitely up there, and that would be my favorite modern book. Now 7, favorite movie version or TV series based on a classic. I love the 2DC version of Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth. Excuse me, yes. Best. I loved everything about that adaptation. 1, it was fairly accurate. 2, Colin Firth. 3, just beautifully done. Beautifully done. I loved every second of it. And the actors made it believable. Just definitely up there. 8, worst classic to movie adaptation. Well, are we talking like modern adaptations or like old adaptations? Because I saw a really horrible version of Jason and the Argonauts. That was awful. But also every version of Jane Eyre in movie form is horrible. None of it is accurate. None of it is good. I also dislike the Count of Monte Cristo versions because a lot of what happens in the adaptations, including the BBC, does not actually happen in the book. So I'm a bit critical of classics movies in a way because I'm very much book is canon. If you change the canon drastically, I get sad. So yeah, those are kind of, I guess, my top 3 worst favorite adaptations. Number 9. Favorite edition you would like to collect more classics from? Okay, the cute little penguin books that are like florally, those are really pretty. I like those a lot. So I like that. I also, to contrast that, I also really like, if you go into Barnes& and Noble and you have those like collector's editions, I love the big, pretty collector's editions ones. I have an Alice in Wonderland one, and I think my dad might have a Sherlock Holmes one, but I definitely would like more of the big, pretty, hardback, glossed, and illustrated versions. Those are probably the ones I would go for more over the penguins, even though the penguins are cute and pretty. But that's me. And 10, an underhyped classic you'd recommend to everyone. Oh, goodness gracious. Underhyped classics that I'd recommend to everyone. This is difficult. If you go to the video that I posted last week, I posted my favorite classics in there, or some of my all-time favorite classics. So I'd for sure recommend those. But in terms of an underrated classic, I have to think about that for a minute. Oh, The Godfather by Mario Puzo. That's a quality book series. That's a classic that was turned into a movie, but most people gravitate towards the movies. And the books are really good. Yeah, the books are really good. I would recommend reading them. They follow the plot of the movie fairly closely, so you could do that, and that's a good time. So I really like that. But also, Erasmus's Praise of Folly, or The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. All of that are great. The Prince is one of my favorites because it's so applicable to today still, especially in terms of our political scene. So I would definitely recommend those 3 fairly underrated books in terms of the classics world. I don't know, but seriously, I could talk about classics all day, so please leave me comments telling me about the classics you've read, or if you've read any of the ones that I mentioned. I'd love to talk to you about them, and because I'm hoping to do at least 1 or 2 classics next year, either early next year or in the fall. I would love to do a buddy read with somebody if you're amenable, and yeah, that's just what I've got for you today. So feel free to like, subscribe, comment, follow me on any of the social media links I posted below, and I'll talk to you all again sometime in the near future and come out with another video soon. Okay, bye.